Well, hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining us today. This is a very special day. We're going to be celebrating Black History Month today.
Yes.
How are you, V?
I'm good. I feel like I'm way down here.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Yes.
We have my Black History Month logo.
Yes.
Anyway.
You're way ahead of me. Oh, how are you doing?
How's everybody? I guess I can't answer me, but
yes.
Here we go. Yeah, this is a wonderful month of celebration. And again, let me do the announcement real quick with a call to conscience. Black History Month Museum every Tuesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there's the address on screen for you. It's in the Columbia City Theater. And then, we're going to talk about, there's so many things that happened in this area for Black History Month. This is where a number of musical or a lot of artists have popped up in this area, right? It's a great place for jazz and, comedy and performances, plays, what have you, all the performing arts. Great area. And the Rainier Valley, where Rainier Avenue Radio World sits, it's a very, very diverse community of folks, not just for the African Americans, but every ethnic group is represented in the Valley, and one of the most diverse in the country, as a matter of fact. Tina, you grew up in that area pretty much, right? So tell us a little bit about your experience growing up.
Yeah, well, really quick. So Black History Month, for those who are unaware, so me and Dee will talk about really quick, but Black History Month is an annual celebration of the achievements of African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in U.S. history. So this is also known as African American History Month. The event grew out of the Negro History Week, a brainchild of historian Carter Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. So I'm glad you asked me about my experience, but my family, the Lombard family, was one of the first 5 predominant Black families in Seattle. And they grew up, basically down there off of Madison and Roy. We were actually right across the street from Quincy Jones. So we were very close with the Quincy Jones family, yes. And I actually played a lot of the family's weddings, funerals, parties. And when Richard Jones actually got installed as a federal court judge, I actually sang at the installation. And I was the first person to be able to sing in the Seattle or the Washington court system. And I was a Black Filipino person. So that is one of the things, I grew up, in the Air Force, and we went from Guam, Philippines, Seattle, we lived all over. But when we did move to Washington State, we lived in Boulevard Park, which was 93.99% white, except for us 4 Black brothers and sisters. And then we went to Rainier Beach, and we lived actually Upper Seward Park, or Upper Rainier Beach, which is kind of like the Lakewood area or Lake Ridge area in Skyway. And I went there, and it was predominantly maybe 60-70% African American, Black. And so then there was Asians, there was Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese weren't there yet, but Chinese, Japanese, and Filipinos, which exhausted the rest of.
Let everyone know you're half Black, half Filipino.
Yeah, some people are like, I didn't know you were. Yeah, a lot of people are like, I didn't know you were half Filipino. Thought you were just Black. And some people say, oh, I didn't know you were Black. Thought you were just Filipino. So, but so me being half Creole and half, which is it's derived from being Black, and then half Filipino. That's kind of an eclectic thing in the 1960s. So my cousin David Lombard, he was born in 1965, in May 1965. He was the first Black and white biracial child born in the city of Seattle.
Oh,
that was 1965.
Wow.
So that was really something else. I mean, that was a big ordeal back then. For me, we actually lived our life half Black, half Filipino. Immaculate Conception Church, which is a pillar in Seattle. It was actually the first cathedral, the first Coliseum for the city of Seattle. That was our church. And that church was designated the African American Black Worship Church for the Archdiocese of Seattle, which incorporated maybe 142 churches. So our church was actually the only African American designated worship for the Archdiocese of Seattle, and also the only Filipino. It was designated the Filipino Church of Seattle too. So growing up, we worshipped like they did in the South. In Louisiana, we had a lot of gospel, had a lot of what's called Black music. Mm-hmm. All the Andre Crouches, all the, Kirk Franklin, we did, Dorothy Norwood. We did every type of Black gospel you could think of. That happened in our church. And so still I had, there were 4 gospel choirs that I directed. And one of them was Filipino, but I had a senior gospel choir. I had a all ages gospel choir. Then I had a men's gospel choir. And it was predominantly Black music within the Catholic Church. And that was very eclectic. There's St. Therese actually Seattle that also does Black music. And they're extremely, extremely a good choir right now too. But as far as being the first Black person, blah, 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 in Seattle, there were a lot of firsts. There were a lot of opportunities because it wasn't as segregated in the 60s and the 70s. It wasn't until the 80s that it was really segregated. And I knew Larry Gossett very well. He was he's a pillar there in Seattle, and also Ron Sims, also a pillar, and also married to a Filipina. But there were situations in Seattle where you couldn't buy houses as an African American across the Ship Canal Bridge. Anything north of the Ship Canal Bridge, if you're Black, you could not buy. So, my aunt, who's Creole, and you can't tell, she's got blue eyes or hazel eyes. You couldn't tell she was Black. You just couldn't tell. But they bought there anyway. Oops. But it was a big thing. There were a lot of places in Seattle, like West Seattle and White Center. White Center is called White Center for a particular reason. If you were other than white, you were not able to even look at houses in Seattle during the 60s and the 70s. Of course, when the federal government had, equal opportunity, so on and so forth, those rules and those laws that were instilled in Washington State, you could not enforce those. So a lot of people of color started moving into those areas of West Seattle and White Center. So, as far as I'm concerned, Seattle still does have a ways to go, but it is really beautifully one of the most diverse cities, whether you're Black, Filipino, Vietnamese, Laotian, Chinese, it doesn't make a difference. White, it doesn't make a difference. Native American Indian, it is very diversified in Seattle.
Yeah, definitely in Federal Way, a lot of Asians, Koreans, Vietnamese.
Yeah, I believe Federal Way boasts the largest Korean community besides LA in the United States.
Really?
Wow. And it's funny because my son was in Taekwondo at Master Sean's Taekwondo. Master Sean was the Olympic champion for the country of Korea before he even got here. But the Koreans adopted me as Korean. I marched in their parades and everything. They're like, "Well, you're Korean. You're Korean." So,
just wear this hat.
They're just like, "You're Korean." And yeah, there's a lot of pictures of me in their Korean outfits. My son was in the Seafair parade with them. Marching as a Korean.
Yeah.
But so nice. It was very, very diverse, very embracing. However, I know that in the late 90s, early 2000s, or middle 2000s, I remember I did have African American clients, and some of them who were my cousins, that the seller was very racist, tried to stop them from buying the home, and they found out the color of their skin. They were told to go to other areas. There's so many cases where when the seller saw that the people buying their house were African American, try to pull out. And that still kind of goes on, not so much as it was 20 years ago, because now it's 2024, but 2025, 2028, 2012, it was a real thing. I had a lot of people who left the military in Bridgeport, they're in Lakewood, and they're in the military now. They want to work, and because of their last name being Black or Hispanic, they were denied loans from lenders. And I had to go above and beyond to get release papers, to get statements that they're still alive and well, all different types of things that don't ordinarily go into approving a loan for some people who had names that were obviously African American or Hispanic.
Yeah.
So like Black History Month, it's not just about us celebrating, the Michael Jacksons of the world, or what have you, the Quincy Jones of the world. It's not really about that. It's basically about, we have contributions. We have made a big difference, a big dent in the United States, the making of the United States, and to be recognized as a person of the United States, and to get fair opportunity for housing, fair opportunity for jobs, fair opportunity for employment. It's just another way of saying, hey, listen, this is our contributions. So please understand that we are an integral part of the United States.
Absolutely. Yes. And as real estate agents, we have to take a fair housing course every year. And for our renewals, for our licenses, we have talk about, discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
What happens there? Redlining in, I think that's more in your world, right, Tina?
Right.
Redlining, where you deny people access to credit.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where they live, right? What else is redlining for you?
Well, redlining, it happened a lot in Washington State, but redlining is when a bank takes a certain area, like let's say Rainier Valley. When I was working in the early 2000s, the banks actually put a circle around the Rainier Valley Avenue or Rainier Valley neighborhood and said, any loans from there, we're not doing anymore. We're just not doing them anymore. And I remember I was working at Seafirst Bank, and I think Bank of America was trying to come in and buy up a lot of different banks, and Seafirst being one of them. The government said, hey, you can't come here and buy these branches or do state in our business in our state, unless you go to these areas that you redline and you make it right, you start doing loans in there. And it's nothing here. I'm in Colorado, and I don't want to say anything, but there are a lot of cities in Colorado where banks completely redline the entire city, and there are no branches in the entire city, which is the second largest city in Colorado. They won't go into those neighborhoods.
Still, to this day?
Yes. Yeah. There are some banks that just, and they acquired a bank that did redline, and the people that were in that neighborhood, they closed that branch and told them to come to the areas that weren't redlined. So it's still an ongoing thing. Maybe not so much in Washington State, places like Colorado, Wyoming, the Midwest. There's still some ground to be covered.
Yeah. And other acts of discrimination for housing is realtors officially not agreeing to show houses in neighborhoods, white neighborhoods, because like you're saying, no, we don't want the Black community infiltrating our area. Right. So it happens. And then tell us about deeds. There's still verbiage.
Yes, there were over 10,000 deeds in the city of Seattle alone, where it said on the covenants, it says you will not have anybody as Black, Filipino, Chinese, whatever. And it goes on and on and on. It lists all the race. You cannot show them this house, and you cannot sell them this house. Now, this is kind of common practice years ago. So I believe there were cities in the state of Florida where it had that same verbiage, where the Asian Real Estate Association they were able to go down there with their lawyers and fight it. And they actually reversed all of the verbiage on the contracts in California. In Washington State, that has not yet to be done. So there's some areas like White Center, there's some areas where Lake Washington, where on the covenant, it says you cannot show somebody of color this house and they cannot buy it. Now, of course, federal law overrides local law. But why does our local law still have it? That's my question.
Yeah.
Why do they still have it? So that's something that we still need to overcome. We still need to talk about. I mean, if you're coming from California, you're living in Mount Olympus in California, which is above Beverly Hills, and you're an African-American family, you want to buy something in Madrona, you want to buy something on the lake, and you see on this covenant that people of color should not be shown this house, so on and so forth. Sure, it's not enforceable, but why is it there? That leaves a really sour taste in somebody's mouth, And there are some states, unfortunately, there are some states where the houses are very inexpensive and they're very good. I get clients who are like, oh, I want to buy rental properties there because they're cheap. And I'm like, there's a reason why they're cheap. It's not just, the economy is strong. I said, well, if you look, and if you just Google it, look at the city. They've had so many problems with racial discrimination in employment and work and social life, up and down the street, police, everything else. I'm like, yeah, you can buy that $40,000 home, but nobody's going to live there, and you're not going to get your bang for your buck. So it really, when there's racism that is involved, especially in the housing, there's opportunity for you to lose money, and for people in the neighborhood or the adjoining neighborhoods to lose money in the value because of the bias and the racism that nobody wants to buy a house within. So for instance, in Rainier Beach, if everybody was racist there, the people are not going to want to buy there. They're not going to want to buy there. And so if nobody wants to buy in a certain neighborhood, then the values go down. So it behooves everybody for racism to be put in the back burner, to get out of here. Because when people live in a certain neighborhood, if the neighborhood is predominantly brown, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to live there. There's too many brown people, and that's just absolutely insane and ridiculous. So the property values sometimes affect when everybody that is tied to the economy is racist. So there are, I wanted to pull up, I have some areas here. There are some areas here where, if you're African-American, where are the most influential places that you can live in the United States or what have you. So, and it's quite interesting. Let me see if I can send this over. over to you. Hold on there. Yeah. But I don't know if this has got a cachet on it. Maybe, let me just go ahead and talk because there's advertising on it. But Black Hills, Beverly Hills is the #1 place for affluent African Americans to live. Mitchville, Maryland. So that's there by DC. Fort Washington, Maryland, also. Kettering, Maryland, also. Olympic Fields, Illinois. Woodmore, Maryland. Friendly, Maryland. Unionville, New York. Hillcrest, New York. And Wheatley Heights, New York. So predominantly the East Coast are some of the best places for economic, so on and so forth, equality as pay and everything else, the income, the economy, everything else. So those are some of the most influential places or the best places for Black families to live culturally and just feel comfortable and everything else. Now here, this is really interesting. This is Washington State. I'm setting this for Washington State. And it's very interesting because people, they just think of 1965 where African Americans used to live, but there are other places within Washington that are really healthy for African American families as far as culture and the economy and diversity and everything else. So this one I'm going to read from you right now is the 12 best places to live in Washington State for Black families. Number 12 is Spokane because of the universities. It's a melting pot, so on and so forth. A lot of economic opportunities. Bellingham, also, which is right next to the border. There's a lot of economical gain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of diversity because of the universities. Pasco, next on the list is Pasco in Tri-Cities. They've got some of the best schools. They have bilingual classes and multicultural programs inserted into their city.
Mm-hmm.
Kent is also a very good place because it resides in culture. There's a lot of culture there. I know my uncle used to have a African-American youth school there that he actually ran. For African-American families, it was very good. So anyways, Kent has a very, very diverse economic stability and support for the parks, the public landscapes, everything else for diversity. Olympia, the capital of Washington State, is known for its liberal and open-minded community. So Olympia is also a very good city that's very diverse. And you've got a lot of military families there, which come from all over the world, all over the United States. Now this is surprising, Bothell. Bothell is located northeast of Seattle. It also combines small-time charm and big city amenities. So Bothell is between buying beautiful houses that are kind of suburban and spacey, and you're close to Seattle. But that used to be a really not diverse place 20 years ago. Renton offers also a diverse community and affordable housing options for African-American families. So they're also very diverse, have a lot of job opportunities, and they have a lot of recreational opportunities. Redmond, also known as Microsoft, they have a lot of jobs for people who are affluent, who've got the engineering degree, so on and so forth. Their parks and their outdoor family activities is very good, and there's a lot of economic influence in Redmond. Bellevue also has an economic diversity. They've got a high-ranking school system, so that's a good place. Issaquah is number 3. Mercer Island is number 2. If I'm correct, Obama's mother actually lives on Mercer Island or lived in Mercer Island. So he spent time there too. Seattle is actually the number 1 place for the African American people to live. And so, so like I was telling you before, I have family and friends that live in Madrona, very affluent, Capitol Hill, Queen Anne, and Magnolia, and Rainier Beach by Stewart Park. Very affluent families. They're on Mercer Island. So yes. So for Seattle, that's some good places to live. Then let me just really quick, if I may, I'm going to talk about cities to live in Colorado. Directly, it was an African-American man who founded Chehalis. Did you know that, Vivi?
Oh, do you see me?
Yeah, I do. There was an African man African-American man who founded Chehalis. Okay, so for Colorado here, for places for African Americans to live, a lot of African American community is attracted to Colorado because of its diversity. The richest African American man in the United States actually lives here in Colorado, and went to school with some of my friends. So that is very, very attuned to. Let me see. We've got colleges here. We've got a lot of very highly accredited colleges here in the state of Colorado. But this is where African Americans actually live in Colorado. Aurora is number 1. Denver, Fountain, Fort Morgan, Colorado Springs, Inglewood, Commerce City, Brighton, Lone Tree, and North Glen. And some of the reasons why it's like that, because they do have they have a lot of military presence here. So people come here from all different cultures. The economy is very, very strong. A lot of these places, I believe Aurora is the fourth most diverse city in the United States. So there's a lot of diversity here. And of course, the education is through the ceiling. I mean, the education here in the public schools are very, very good. They challenge a lot of private schools in other states. And the cost of living here in Colorado overall is amazing. If you have a high-tech degree, at all, Colorado, as far as aerospace, as far as engineering, aeronautical, anything, Colorado is the place for that. And some of these cities here are very, very, very diverse. So
my son Kyle is trying to get over to one of the colleges in Colorado for a PA degree, physician's assistant. So in the medical field.
Really?
He's looking at
Colorado. Is he which one? Colorado University, Boulder? Or?
I don't know which one.
Tina's here. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Were you done sharing your stuff? I have a couple of homes here that I thought might be interested. These are areas where affluent African Americans are moving to, and there they are. Take a look at these. So north, I usually go north, south, east, west. So north, to look at the Laurelhurst area, which is by Lake Washington, by the University of Washington, and Laurelhurst neighborhood for $1.9 million. These are the types of areas where people with money, African Americans, are moving to or looking for. And then, on the east in Bellevue, there's a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath condo, downtown Bellevue. A lot of people are moving to downtown Bellevue for high tech. Microsoft has office buildings there, and for 1.8, you can get one of these downtown condos. And then south to Redondo, which is west of Federal Way, you see the ocean in the background. The sound. And so for a couple $1 million, you can get a large home for all your kids, 5 bedrooms, 4.25 bath. And then west, I looked into Gig Harbor. That's kind of growing out there in Kitsap Peninsula. 4-bedroom, 3.25 bath for a little under 1.7. So right now these homes are available, and there are people just. Spring market is here again. Yes. So it's happening.
Yeah, it's really nice. These houses are absolutely beautiful, Via. Thank you for showing them. I know my aunt Shirley. She had a house right there down Lake Stewart Park,
Washington.
Stewart Park, right down there off of Lake Washington. She had a giant swimming pool. She got a giant basketball court, and she had a giant tennis court right there overlooking the water, which is right there on the water. And, it's funny because a lot of people from Louisiana, and her family they come to Washington State and they just fall in love because of all the trees. Because of the weather. We think, the weather is cold or it's rainy, but they're like, oh my gosh, it's better than the heat. It's better than the heat. So these areas, thank you for showing those houses, because those are beautiful homes. Absolutely beautiful homes. A lot of African-American buyers actually are 4th or 5th generation. They bought 4 or 5 houses before. A lot of them have been in Seattle for years. So a lot of them are 2nd or 3rd time home buyers, do not hesitate to call me or Violeta. We can get you some homes. We can get you into a home fast, and we would love to help you. But, it's very important that you do find somebody who's culturally sophisticated, so that when it comes to representing you, they're not going to take anything you shouldn't be taking and we should be taking. But we will fight for you.
That would be us. Warriors, princesses.
Yes.
We do know the culture, the Asian culture, African American culture. We deal with a lot of customers in those ethnicities, and we're not going to have you get messed up by people who don't care, who don't know.
Right.
So we're here to serve. And
yeah, they can show you wacko houses or something. Yeah. Yeah. You know, V, when I bought my house in Federal Way, it was brand new and it was a beautiful home. But the realtors I had were wackadoodle 1 and wackadoodle 2. They kept bringing us to houses that were worse than the house that we lived in Seattle. And it's because of the color of our skin. They kept bringing us to houses with butterflies on the side and just crazy, single wide homes. And I'm like, oh, Lord. So we did find somebody. So if you get somebody who is not treating you right and you can't put your finger on it, don't even guess. Just give me and Violeta a call. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they need to know about taxes. King County versus Pierce County.
Yes,
There's quite a difference. And we moved down to Pierce County from Sammamish, east of Bellevue. And let me tell you, the taxes down here are far better. So
yes.
Looking for a tax break.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We got it down here. So we know pockets of where things are that you are probably interested in. And, you know, we have access to all the homes on the MLS.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just send Tina all the things and she'll get you approved ASAP. So we got a number of things going on and it's ramping up, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You. What do we got? I just want to, do you have any announcements? I just have the one next week for Washington State Basketball State Championship. February 28th through March 2nd is happening here with Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And anything else for you for Black History? Have we missed anything?
No, I'm just saying if you have any type of Black History celebrations going around in your part of town, you need to get out and celebrate.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So, yeah. So thank you. And so next time, you know, be sure to tune in next week at the same place at the same time. Until then, I'm Tina Lombard with Bank of England Mortgage.
And Violeta Strash for Coldwell Banker Danforth. Thank you all. See you next time.